bring up a gentleman now who has intimate details about the life on the road of a spooker. In fact, Dr. Creep, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Creep, I'm going to bring him up here in a second. His uncle toured one of the largest monster shows in the country, and he's going to share some of those memories with us now. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Creep!
Thank you. Actually, I think I should bow down to you.
Oh, heavens, stand up here, you crazy fool.
All right.
Dr. Creep, ladies and gentlemen, the great Dr. Creep. I want to stand up and give this man an applause. For God's sake, it's Dr. Creep. Thank you, sir. That means a great deal. You people have no idea in Ohio how lucky you are. You really don't. All right. Doctor, if you would tell us a little bit about your brother and his show, what it was called, and what it was about, what did he do?
Well, he had actually a full Frankenstein's laboratory on stage. Actually, what he would do is he would go into theaters, he'd bring the entire package with him, the movie, the monsters, full Frankenstein's laboratory on stage, a tip table where he cut a girl's heart out on stage. That was one of the acts. Yes, it was kind of a sacrifice to the moon god and all that. And he built all the props, and a fellow by the name of Tom, who has, my uncle also did a syndicated show, actually only did one called The Professor. It's out, I think Sinister Video has it. And he also at the very beginning would have his children come on stage and it'd be kind of a funny act, and then it progressed. But my uncle was known as the Monster of Curtis Street. It's from Middletown, Ohio. He also was a front man and did a lot of different things for a lot of movies. And he actually created the monster movie genre in Florida, Thunderbird International Studios. If you ever seen Death, Curse of Tar-2, you see my uncle because he was Tar-2 in that particular movie. He also did Sting of Death in about 48 movies. But the thing what I remember is the one night, one of the theaters that we went into, and we did the Spook Show. My dad, I mean, they were brothers and everything, and they would go everywhere. They even go to carnies and side shows. He'd make up himself as the werewolf. It took him 2.5 hours to do it, rubber up the nosing and the entire thing. They put him in a cage, and my dad did the same thing he did when you folks came in for the wedding. He was the barker, come in and see the werewolf, and then he proceeded to tell about the werewolf and lycanthropy and everything. But the cage, with him rattling the cage and everything, he could break away anytime he wanted to. So the way they actually cleared the audiences and brought the other people in is after my daddy gave his spill, my uncle would shake the cage, the entire cage would drop. And if you've ever seen my uncle as the werewolf, you hear people screaming down the midway because he'd chase them all the way out the tent and partly down the midway. So yeah, my uncle, yeah, he was a fascinating man. The thing that I enjoyed was the third act that he usually brought into the theater. But I was going to tell you about the story. It was a small theater around this particular, I think in Greenville, whatever. And he was doing a show, and the stage curtain caught on fire. And there was a really bad blaze. But the thing is, he incorporated that, and he could make the people believe anything. He incorporated that act. Nobody got killed that night. They stayed in their chairs because my uncle produced that particular Spook Show that night, and nobody got injured, whatever, and it was a great show that night. But I remember that. I was backstage, and there was quite a flame, and really seriously, some people could have got injured. They were able to put it out, but the thing is, he convinced the audience it was part of the act. So,
Let me ask you a question. What was your uncle's touring name and his name, the name of his show?
Well, I'm kind of upset because that book that came out about Ghostmasters and things like that, they don't have him in there. But as I said, my uncle had the largest traveling monster show in the nation, and he took the name Hobart, and he actually turned it around and made it Trabo. It was Dr. Trabo and his House of Horrors. He did a lot of things. I mean, around about Halloween, he'd always make up as the werewolf and jump on the kids that came trick-or-treating, and things like that. Well, actually, he was also one, and I think he did it on purpose. They were playing at the Paramount Theater in Middletown. It's now a parking lot. It was one of the best theaters around. He had a mummy in the lobby, open casket and everything. In walks the FBI and says, "I understand you've been body snatching. I want you to unwrap that mummy right there." I really think he gave them a telephone call, or one of his friends hit. But the thing is, he had to sit right there and unwrap the entire mummy to show them that it was just a prop, you know. But he had actually convinced people that he was a body snatcher, and actually the show was packed that night. The FBI walked in. Yeah, he do things like that. He was kind of a triple threat man. He did makeup. He was an actor. Actually, the nurse in the third act, she was 6'9". Her name was Shirley. And the fight sequence between the werewolf and the Frankenstein monster, they made a swipe on her dress in front, and it was a body stocking, and people thought that she was nude. She was like 6'9". And then he had a blood pocket on Igor trying to stop the Frankenstein. He'd grab it here, and he'd rip the arm off, and a blood pocket would be running down here, a lot of blood all the way down. He and Tom were fantastic in putting this thing together. Tom built the set, and he traveled around all around the nation. But the thing is, he's not in that Ghostbusters. I hope we put out another one. Maybe the Horror Hosts Underground will put something out like that. Or there's some people around here that are filming the different horror hosts. They were talking about doing something on Spook Shows. I really would love, with all these people and all these talented people that are on the Horror Host Underground, I'd like to rebuild my Uncle's Monster Show. He's in Florida right now, relaxing. As I said, he's done about 50 motion pictures, most of them monster movies. Dr. Trebo will live in my mind forever. I'll tell you one more story, and then I'll hand the mic over to him. He loved to play jokes on people. There was a bar 2 blocks down the street. It was called the Kingpin Tavern. So he dressed up as the werewolf, and it took him 2.5 hours. He walked down to that bar, walked through the front door, and sat down by the drunkest person that was in that place. And it was a smoky lit room, and he made a guttural sound the werewolf would make. And the guy thought that he was asking for a light for a cigarette, and he went like this. My uncle went, "Rah!" That guy screamed. You could hear him 3 blocks down the road. He jumped up in the air, and he ran out of the bar. They lost their best customer that night because he was thinking he had a bad case of DT. My uncle would do that all the time. He enjoyed doing things like that, okay? Yeah, and he made his spook shows fun, and he got the people involved because the Frankenstein monster is a cousin of mine, too. His name was Don Henry. He was like 6'5", or what was it? The elevated boots, he maybe was about 7 foot. Frankenstein. The thing is, when he put on the makeup to do that spook show, he thought he was Frankenstein. And he'd come out in the audience, and anybody messed with him, he would actually push him around a little bit. Yeah, he actually thought that he was the Frankenstein monster. And that was my cousin Don Henry. I really have a lot of fond memories. As I said, my dad did that carnival and a lot of fairs and things like that. Because you see them all the time. There's some of the fairs where you have you'll see an illusion where a person turns into a gorilla. Well, my uncle in the cage, and my dad telling about the werewolf and about the legend of lycanthropy and everything, and the shapeshifters. When he broke out of that cage, you should have seen the people run out of that tent, man. They'd be streaming down the midway trying to get away from the werewolf. So yeah, and as I said, and he also bought a package of a lot of the Mexican monster movies, and they were for drive-in theaters down south. When he went down south, did things with Thunderbird International and Christopher George's outfit, Guardian Films. He would buy an entire package. He'd go into these drive-in theaters in the lower end of Florida, and he'd bring a bloodmobile, people drink blood and everything. He built an entire package around it, and he made it fun for those people in the drive-in theater, and you could hear the monsters when they went out into the audience there. You could hear the clicking of the automobiles and everything else. So he made it a lot of fun, and I really take after him more than anything else. He did movies, he did stage shows. I did a Nightmare Theater in the Orient, and I also we did like plays and things on radio. and that was in the Orient. We broadcasted into Red China one time. We also said happy birthday to Mao Zedong. Yeah, we actually dedicated the show to him, and he wrote. He actually wrote back. He said it was a great show. So, so we tried. Well, let's see if we can do Midnight in Moscow and see if we can get a response there. And he wrote back to us too. He liked the show. I don't know. We did a lot of different things over the years, and I really enjoyed it. I'm probably the oldest one. Gore Duvall has done his show in 1971. I beat him by 2 years. I have been a horror host for 33 years, and really, my uncle's responsible for anything and everything that I've done on TV because he's always made it fun. And I'd like to do this horror show again and take it on the road because it really was a fantastic show. And as he was saying, all these Ghostmasters and everything, most of them were magicians and illusionists, and they put together a great show. A lot of them came in with a package, as my uncle did down south, and just made it fun for all the people that came in. And then you have a front man going around, and sometimes in the high schools and things, like he did the Wonderful World of LSD. He was the makeup man on that, and he also did some special effects, built a maggot farm, Scream Baby Scream, and things like that. But he would always go in, and he'd protest against the movie showing that night at midnight, and he'd pack the audience. He would get the people so riled, they'd come out, and it was really fantastic.
There was a scene like that in Matinee, Joe Dante's Matinee, where he staged that. He had two people out front protesting the movie to get more people excited about it. Yeah. And that was a lot of the tricks of the trade to get people out there. You mentioned the girl into the gorilla illusion.
Yeah.
Not to spoil it for anyone, but that's called the Pepper's Ghost illusion. In 1862, John Henry Pepper invented this great illusion where you have a pane of glass and you dim the lights on one side and raise the lights on the other, and whatever you're looking at. How many people have been to the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland? Yes? Or Disney World? The illusion is used in the ballroom and out in the graveyard and things like that. It's a great illusion, and the spookers used to use that a lot too, and the carnivals, the carnies, and sideshows, and what have you. Doctor, thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Thank you very much. Dr. Creep, everyone, thank you. Thank you so much. It's true, the spook shows, they don't do them anymore, Night Creatures, and the question is, why not?